Hello everyone and welcome. Now first of all, I want to say I know this video is a day late. So what happened? Well, the thing was I had a god-awful migraine yesterday. And so I thought better do this video a day later rather than try and do it while staring at a flickering, fluorescent monitor. I don't think that would have been a very enjoyable video for me or you. So, thank you for bearing with me, but I'm feeling much better today, and we have a very important topic to talk about today. We are discussing how to thrive in a crisis. And the reason why I want to talk about this today is because I have been seeing so many people and just the narrative in general talking about how to survive this, how to get through this. But we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive, okay? And even evolution has shown us that it's not the fittest or the strongest, but it's the most adaptable that survives. So we don't want to just survive, and we don't want to just adapt either. We want to thrive and transform. So we don't want to survive and adapt. We want to thrive and transform. Yes, it's true that previously evolution has always been about survival and adaptation. But we are entering into a new phase of consciousness. And it's no longer about survival and adaptation for us, but it's about thriving and transforming. So what we want to do is to be able to shift our perspective and shift our consciousness so that we don't get trapped into thinking, oh, how are we just going to get through this? How are we just going to survive? But rather, how we can thrive and transform rather than survive and adapt. So in order to understand this better, what we really need to do is have a shift in perspective and a shift in consciousness. Because what is our ego? Our ego is a tool, okay? An ego is not something to get rid of. It's an important tool. However, it can trip us up. We have been conditioned by society. Our ego consciousness has been conditioned by society as a tool of survival. And this is what evolution has conditioned us for, billions of years. We have been conditioned to survive. Because that is what is important in the early stages of evolution. The important thing in the early stages of evolution is simply to survive, to not get eaten. But now, as we enter into this new consciousness, we have to look towards not just simply survival, not just simply adaptation, but to thrive and transform. Because previously as well, in an animalistic consciousness, or just a very low form of human consciousness, we've had to adapt. The environment changes, and we have to move accordingly and adapt accordingly to that. But now we have the power to not just adapt, but to transform, right? Things like, take global warming, for example. We wouldn't just be subjected to that. We could transform that if we wanted to. We could change that if we wanted to, if we have the will and the desire to. There are so many aspects of our world that we can transform. Look at when, Australia, the fires of Australia. We could transform that if we wanted to, but people weren't putting resources into stopping that. They were putting resources into big business and other things. So do you see how we are no longer just subjected to the forces of our environment, but we can transform the environment itself. We don't just merely need to adapt to the environment, we can transform the environment. Big shout out to Pink Panda. Thank you for helping us wake up the world. Pink Panda says, thank you for the video you made on quarantine and the feelings we may have during it. It's been hard for me, love to you. Well, Pink Panda, yeah, so for those who don't know, I did a video on depression and quarantine. And this actually relates to what we're talking about today. And I'll get into that into a moment. Because if we want to thrive, we also have to make sure that we are in a good place mentally. We have to be looking out for our mental health. Okay? So it's true that before we can thrive, we have to survive. Right? It's sort of a step-by-step process. Before we can thrive, we have to survive. Because if we haven't survived, you're not going to thrive very well. Right? So it is extremely important, first of all, to survive. But we don't want to just get stuck there. And the problem is, though, is that most of humanity just gets stuck in the survival phase. And the reason why is because we have been conditioned by evolution and society to simply survive. So our ego consciousness tells us that we need to survive. But we need to have a shift in consciousness now. And so what are we? We are eternal monadic minds, right? We are eternal minds. We are systems of mathematical energy patterns. And we are constantly evolving and transforming. Our mathematical data is constantly changing and evolving. So our very nature, our essence, is change, transformation, movement, evolution. That is our nature, and that is our purpose, really. Our purpose is evolution, both individually and collectively. So what we need to realize, what do humans fear? Humans fear change. Humans are terrified of change. They like to get stuck in cycles, monotonous cycles, where they're just going in the same pattern over and over and over. Why? Because it's comfortable. It's safe. They know they'll survive if they just stick to this same pattern over and over. But change is terrifying for most humans, because with change comes the unknown. And especially in this crisis, there's a lot of unknowns, and humanity fears the unknown. Now, why does humanity fear the unknown? Humanity fears the unknown because in the unknown, there is a possibility of having a negative experience. So again, think about in terms of evolution. If you go into the unknown, which is, let's say it's a dark forest, right? You're going into the unknown, a dark forest. Well, you could be eaten by a predator. A negative experience could happen in the unknown. And this is why humanity fears the unknown. However, it also presents the opportunity for a positive experience. You could perhaps find a treasure. You could find treasure in that dark forest as well, right? Not necessarily something negative. So the unknown is neither positive nor negative. It could be either, but humanity fears it because it's been conditioned to stick to what is safe and what is known. But if you stick to what is safe and what is known, you're never going to move forward. You're never going to evolve. Moving forward is all about exploring the unknown. And change is a lot of unknowns. And once again, humanity is terrified of the unknown and thus terrified of change. And there's a lot of change happening right now. And this is why so many people are like, okay, we just need to survive, and then everything will go back to normal, how it was before, and then everything will be fine. And they kind of stick their heads in the sand, right? But guess what? We don't want to stick our heads in the sand. Things aren't going to just go back to how they were completely. This is a time of change. And this requires a shift in perspective. So your ego consciousness has been conditioned to fear change because it wants to survive. But now what you need to do is to have a shift in your perspective to your higher self. Your higher self is an eternal mind. It's not your body, it's not your avatar, it's not your particular ego consciousness. Your higher self is you as an eternal mind, a monadic being, of eternal information that is constantly changing and evolving. So your true self, what you truly are as a monadic mind, a monad, is a system of change. So you see how your ego consciousness, because of society's conditioning, fears change. But your true self, your higher self, your monadic self, is a being of change. It's eternal change, constant change. As Heraclitus said, the eternal fires of change. You can never step in the same river twice, because the flow of life is constantly changing. So what needs to happen is a perspective shift, where your particular ego consciousness, you need to decondition yourself and get rid of what society and years of evolution have told you. And instead, let your higher self teach your ego consciousness that change is something to be embraced, and that through change we can begin to thrive and evolve and grow. So what is the purpose of life? Self-transformation and world transformation. The purpose of life is not survival and adaptation. It's about evolution and transformation. Survival is the first step in that process, but we've gotten past that step. We are now looking for transformation. And so what this crisis is doing, this crisis is a time of change, and it is revealing cracks in the system. It's revealing so much. I know that you guys have seen it, right? Are you not seeing what this is revealing? It's revealing the failures of capitalism. It's showing all the horrible stupidity, all the racism, all the individualism, all the people who don't care about anyone else but themselves. It's revealing all the flaws in our current world. So what this means is that people are now going to be open to new ideas, where previously they weren't so much, because it's the illusion of this world had blinded them and they thought everything was going along smoothly. But this has shown, it has removed the blinders, and an awakening is occurring, an awakening that's showing all the flaws in this world. So now people are open to new ideas. So what we need to be focused on right now is, yes, personal growth and personal transformation, but also world transformation in spreading these ideas and spreading this information so that we may raise consciousness and thus shape the world trajectory according to our will and according to our vision. We have that opportunity right now, and this is so important. The trajectory of the world can be shaped right now according to our will and according to our vision. So let's start planting those seeds and disseminating this information so that the world may go towards our age of unity and a world led by logic, reason, compassion, and intelligence. One that has a goal of taking all the individuals and actualizing their potential. What I want you to really understand is that in this time of change, it is traumatic because we're not used to it, and we have been conditioned to fear change and resist change. So we have to make sure that we are doing okay mentally. So it's very important in this time, all right, to make sure that your mental faculties are in check, because this is a very mental time, a very mind-focused time. So make sure that your mental faculties are on check. And I know extroverts are going to be having a really hard time right now, and I feel for them. It's hard for everyone, extroverts and introverts. I am a hardcore introvert, and this time is still difficult. There's a lot of change. Doesn't mean it's easy. It's difficult. But that's why I feel for extroverts, because if it's difficult for introverts, it's, that much more difficult for extroverts. So what we have to do is make sure that we're doing self-checks and checking in ourselves and making sure that we are doing well mentally. And there's a lot of things that you can do for that. A lot of simple things. For example, making sure that your space, your apartment, your house, make sure that it's organized and comfortable. And the reason why this helps is because very, very often your external conditions reflect your internal conditions. And your external conditions can also shape your internal conditions. So if you have a very chaotic, depressing, disorganized environment, your mind can be disorganized, chaotic, and depressed. So it's very important that you make sure that your place is organized and that you have a comfortable atmosphere, since that's where you're going to be spending a lot of your time. You need to make sure that that is where you can be able to be in that environment so that you are staying well mentally. Also, make sure that you stay active, such as going for walks and working out. The reason why, well, there's a number of reasons for this, but one reason why is that working out increases your serotonin levels. And you, again, people are going through a depressed time right now because they're not able to have, meet up with their friends, or for a lot of different reasons. People may be being depressed. So your body is craving, needs serotonin right now. So working out can increase your serotonin levels and make you feel a lot better mentally. And hey, guess what? I know I've heard that a lot of people are masturbating a lot more lately. Hey, if you're masturbating a lot more, that's probably because your brain is craving serotonin and it's trying to create it by any way possible. So, again, you want to do mental health checks. Check in on yourself. And also, while we do want to thrive and transform the world, you also need to take some time to rest when you need it and not feel bad about it. Because, again, this is a difficult time. Just because we're saying that we can thrive and transform the world doesn't mean it's not difficult, that it's not tumultuous. So if you need to take the time to rest and recover, that's perfectly fine, and don't feel bad about it. Just don't get stuck there. If you haven't seen my video on void states, make sure that you check them out. Void states are an excellent way in this time to do inner reflection and also to make the unconscious conscious. So when we do void states, the goal is to make the unconscious conscious. And this is even what our symbol here means. It has the different unconscious structures of the mind. The shadow self, the mirror self, the power self, all encapsulated within the higher self. And so our process of void states is all about making the unconscious conscious, exploring what is happening in your psyche underneath the shallow waters of consciousness, so that we may bring them to the surface. Another powerful thing about void states is at the end of every void state, we align ourselves collectively with the goal of transforming ourselves and transforming the world. So at the end of every void state, we set that intention to transform ourselves and transform the world. And every Hyperion who engages in a void state sets those intentions. And that's very powerful for staying on the same page in aligning our goals together. This is an unprecedented time. And humanity, as I have said, it fears change. It fears anything new. But in change is where growth will occur. What if the caterpillar feared the cocoon? If the caterpillar feared the cocoon, it would never transform into a butterfly. So change, the unknown, is nothing to fear. Instead, it is an opportunity for us to evolve and transform. So do away with the conditioning of society and even the conditioning of years and years of evolution, telling us to simply survive and adapt, but rather change the perspective to your higher self, which is an eternal mind and is literally a being of change, of constant motion, constant transformation, and understand that transformation is embedded in the fabric of reality. And if we want to grow, it is all about not just surviving, but thriving, and not about adapting, but transforming. So let's use this time for personal and collective evolution. Let's use this time to thrive and transform ourselves as we look inwards and grow and evolve, and as we use this time, as people are now open to new ideas, to spread this information and raise awareness so that we may shape the world according to our vision, according to our will, so that we may reach the age of unity and build a world of logic, reason, compassion, and freedom. I know this can be a crazy time, but don't let change scare you. Don't let the unknown bring fear. Rather, embrace it and look towards the ways that we can use this time to thrive personally and transform the world according to our will and according to our vision. Remember, on Monday, we're going to be having a live book reading of the Kybalion, so make sure you're subscribed so you'll be able to join us on Monday there. And we have these live streams every Thursday. I was a day late. We did it on Friday today just because I had a terrible migraine yesterday, but it's usually every Thursday. So make sure you're subscribed so you'll get those notifications. And I will see you then, my friends, ad astra, to the stars.